I started it this week.
Yeah, well, she did, but I was like in the process of getting it going, and then she did it, and then it just made it real for me instead of like, the forced version that I normally have. Anyways, hi, honey. How you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. So we're actually going to be covering one of my favorite sections of the Bible today.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorites because it is tied heavily in with Jesus.
Is it?
Yes, it's very heavily tied to Jesus. Well, we're not going to cover all of the deep connections between Jesus and the story today. We'll do that a lot more when it gets to the New Testament and everything like that. So, but today we're going to be covering Daniel and the lion's den. Dum, dum, dum. Bum, 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 bum.
For anybody following along, that's Daniel chapter 6.
Yes. So, in case you guys don't remember from last time, Daniel got blinged out by Shazam. He didn't wish for it. He actually read the writing on the wall and interpreted it. Shazam was promptly killed, though. He got put in the ground. Remember it was a Tupac-style assassination thing. They were rolling down the street in a Camry and they shot him. Anyways,
sipping on gin and juice.
Yep.
Laid back.
But anyways, he was most likely probably killed by the drunk hillbilly known as Darius the Beer King, who then took the Trailer Park throne that Shazam once sat upon. Now, where we're getting at today supposedly happened in 540 BCE, but let's just talk realistically here. It was the 2nd century. So the 2nd century BCE, not like CE. But anyways, Darius the Beer King set up 20 of his best cousin brothers to help him rule the boonies that he has inherited, or took over rather.
It's 120.
Oh, 120 cousin brothers. Sorry, I only heard 20. 120 of them. But he made a special exception for Daniel because I'm guessing he could read bloody words on the wall. And so apparently Daniel did a whole lot better than the other cousin brothers, which Daniel wasn't a cousin brother, but that's probably why he was ahead.
He was there were only 3 administrators over the satraps.
Oh, so Daniel was an administrator. Listening. No, yes. I was listening. Okay. It's the Bible. Anyways, so so there were cousin brothers, 120 of them, and Daniel was one of the administrators that handled them all. And since he did better than most all of them, Darius was going to make him like a ruler or responsible for just pretty much all of the hillbillies in the land. And the most powerful of the hillbillies tried to take Daniel down a notch, but they were too dumb to know how to do this. So what they did was they wanted to go, and what they ended up doing was going to the Beer King and telling him to declare a law, I guess do an executive order that would say that anyone in the land for the next, a little while, that sucks a dick that ain't mine, they will be thrown into the lion's den.
30 days.
For 30 days.
No.
Oh, for the next 30 days, if you can only suck my dick or pray to me or something, praise me, something like that. Anyways, it's all the same. Daniel then hears this and was like, fuck you, Darius. Go get drunk on your Coors Light over there. And then he proceeds to pray in his own way to Yahweh. All the cousin brothers figured that he would do that. He would flip a middle finger to Darius and pray to Yahweh anyway, so they turned him in and ratted on him because that was their plan. The king agreed that Daniel broke the law and proceeded to throw him into the lion's den. The king was very upset about this, and he was so upset he didn't even purchase hookers that night. I mean, that's serious. That's when you know it's serious, when he doesn't purchase hookers.
I mean, I feel like the king would get them for free.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
He's the king, after all.
Yeah, he is. So Darius then goes to the lion's den the next morning, and Daniel was alive. miraculously. Apparently, the lions were also upset and decided not to eat that night either. Anyways, the king was happy and let him out. And the king had all the conspirators killed because apparently it was a conspiracy now. I don't know when he found out that it was a conspiracy. Maybe we'll figure that out. But anyways, the king then declared that everyone must fear and show reverence to the God of Daniel.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing means suck Daniel's God's dick. Daniel then remained in service to Darius until he was gunned down in the streets.
He just fled.
He was chased out, whatever. Anyways, Daniel then flees as well as Cyrus from Persia takes over. And I'm guessing that now Cyrus is lead of the trailer park that they are ruling over. And that's going to be the end of the Bible study.
No, that's just the end of your portion.
What?
Yeah, we're going to
I recited that perfectly. No. I feel like everybody knows exactly what's up with Daniel's in the Den.
I mean, I feel like we should probably just read it like we always do.
Okay, whatever.
I mean, if we don't read it and go through it, then how are you going to be able to do your whole Jesus-y connection? How are you going to get that in?
I mean, you got a good point.
I do. You ready to go on?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Hoorah. What's up, heathens?
How y'all doing?
So, I got things wrong. Apparently, I quote unquote wasn't listening. So we're going to have to go through this, I guess.
Yeah. It's only chapter 6. It's not too long.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we know Daniel, last time he was given a high rank, right? He got his purple robes and his gold chain, and he was given a very high position in Darius the Mede's government. Wrong kind of mead, not beer. Not beer, MEDE. Mm-hmm.
That's just disappointing.
I'm so sorry. And so we're early on in Darius's reign, and he decides to appoint some satraps, which satraps are like regional governors in this area of the world at that time.
Yeah, okay? His cousin brothers.
Governors.
Oh.
Regional governors, basically mayors of towns, essentially.
Right.
Okay. So are you ready to start going through this?
Yep.
All right. Daniel chapter 6. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. So now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. I'm assuming just like directly underneath him, yeah?
Yeah. I would assume so.
So at this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so.
Jealous bitches.
Yeah, apparently he was the he's a very ethical person. But they couldn't find any corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." Right. So these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors all have agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days except to you, your majesty, should be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed." So King Darius put the decree in writing.
I find it a little hard to believe that you can't change the laws in any kind of society.
And once they put it in writing, apparently that is it.
I don't know. I feel like any society built like that just doesn't make sense. But I don't know. I don't know if that's historically accurate or not. I'm rather skeptical, but let's just assume that's how it was.
Okay. Well, when Daniel learned of the decree, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God just as he had done before.
Wow, 3 times a day. That's a lot.
It's dedication.
Is it? Or is it just, I don't know, he just doesn't have anything else better to do? Like, I don't know, I could think of a lot of things that are better to do.
I mean, this is what he chooses to do. So he does it anyway. He prays to his God, which we knew he would, right?
Yeah.
So the men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. And did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being except you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den? The king answered, the decree stands in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. Then they said to the king, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day. When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Because the king likes Daniel.
Right.
Yeah, he does not want to lose Daniel. But the men went as a group to King Darius and said to him, remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed.
Sorry, I hate to break in here so early. Do you see a parallel at all in the New Testament?
Do I?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Why don't you tell us about it?
Okay. So I just hearing this story right here reminds me insanely of Pilate and how Jesus was condemned to death. Because in the New Testament and all of them, what you have are the Jewish Sanhedrin, right? They're pushing Pilate to condemn Jesus to death. They bring charges against him and tell him, hey, you have to put him to death. And Pilate struggles with the decision. He notoriously goes back and forth and tries to figure out ways not to put Jesus to death, which is, uncharacteristic of Pilate.
Yeah, I was just going to say that would have been weird from a historical basis. That would have been weird.
Right. Because Pilate is not known for struggling with a decision as to whether or not to kill somebody. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a guy who had a bunch of his soldiers dressed as Jewish protesters, slip into the crowd, and then on his order, kill anybody that they could get their hands on. I think one Jew on a stick is not going to be that big of a deal for Pilate. So anyways, and that particular story that I was just talking about with Pilate and the protesters and stuff is found in Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews. Actually, it was right before the supposed reference to Jesus. But anyways, so what I'm seeing here is a parallel between what happens between Darius, the governors, whatever.
The other people who rule the land.
Right. Them and Daniel, because Darius is trying not to condemn Daniel to death. He's doing everything that he can to see if he can appease the governors without having to put Daniel to death, but he ends up having to condemn Daniel to death even though he doesn't want to. And the New Testament makes it even more explicit by Pilate washing his hands of it, saying this is not my fault or anything like that. Like, this isn't me, this is y'all kind of thing. But it's just a strange parallel leading up to like the death of Jesus. It's interesting.
Okay. So you ready to move on with this story?
Yep.
Okay. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, may your God, whom you serve continuously, rescue you. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep.
Right. So on this particular part, there's of course there was a cover stone over the tomb in all 4 Gospels. But one of the things that is that sometimes apologists say is rather unexplained or anything like that is the seal that's placed on Jesus's tomb in Matthew's Gospel. That's the only Gospel that has a seal being placed on the tomb so that you could verify that nobody opened up the tomb, right? Mm-hmm. In Daniel, Darius seals the tomb with his own mark.
Mm-hmm. And the marks of his nobles.
And the marks of his nobles. So Matthew, the gospel writers, they got all their information about Jesus, like what happened to him and everything like that, from the Old Testament. So there's clear Old Testament basis for having a seal on the tomb. And Matthew didn't like how Mark doesn't have a seal, and so he changed it. Of course, Luke was like, fuck that seal. But Anyways,
is putting a seal on a tomb like a normal thing that they would do at this time? So like that it wouldn't be so unusual that they had to find it in the Old Testament, but that it was just something that was commonly done.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I can't imagine that, sealing the tomb like that would be all that common.
Certainly not by a king.
Right. Probably not. But I mean, ultimately, I don't know what the historical significance of sealing the tomb with like a seal is. So that'd be something interesting to look up.
Okay. So he was very distressed, right? After that happened, he didn't eat. No entertainment was brought to him.
Right.
And he didn't sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you continually serve, been able to rescue you from the lions?" I think it's weird that he calls him the living God.
Yeah.
Seems like a weird thing to do here. Anyway, Daniel answered, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angel and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty." The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted his God.
Right. So on this particular part, how the finding of the empty tomb, the structure of this matches the exact same structure in the New Testament. So it's pretty obvious that the New Testament writers got the structure of finding the empty tomb and what was found in the empty tomb from this story of Daniel. It even goes as far as to describe the angels that appeared at the empty tomb exactly the same way that Daniel describes it. And the reaction of the people that describe the reaction of the people that find Daniel / the empty tomb are pretty much the exact same. And so there's a lot of connections between this particular part and what's found in the New Testament with finding the empty tomb. It's very obvious that the New Testament writers were not recording something that historically happened. They borrowed information from the Old Testament to generate new information for the New Testament.
But in this case, the tomb wasn't found empty. Daniel was alive in there.
Well, true, but what the main focus here, it's not that the tomb was found empty or anything like that. There's obviously going to be differences here, but what you're looking for is how do the angels appear to Daniel, and the way that the angel is described in the Septuagint version of Daniel is the exact same way that the angel is described in the New Testament. Okay. So you're not looking for like a one-to-one match here. You're looking for basic story elements that are exactly the same, like the characterizing the angels in the same way, the same flow of events happening in the exact same order. That's kind of what you're looking for.
I also think it's interesting that he says when Daniel was lifted from the tomb, no wound was found on him. And that kind of seems, and maybe there's not a connection there, but I mean, when Jesus was resurrected, he didn't, I guess Jesus still had, you could see the wounds on him.
Well, specific wounds, which is kind of weird because in the when they talk about his wounds, of course he's got the side wound, right?
Yes.
On occasion. And then he's got the wounds through the hands.
Right.
But I mean, for all intents and purposes, when Jesus is shown like the post-resurrection appearances, he seems to be completely healed and everything.
Yes. And even the wounds are healed. They're just still holes. Yeah. So
that's because he's holy.
Clever. Okay, so at the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Which, this is super weird. To me, this is super weird because the men didn't falsely accuse Daniel.
Right.
Daniel was guilty of breaking the law.
And he knew he was breaking the law when he did it.
He absolutely did. But there was a conspiracy. The reason that those men had the king make this decree was so that they could have Daniel killed. So there was a conspiracy there, but Daniel did break the law.
Yeah, he did. But I'm just kind of I have no idea how Darius came to the conclusion that it was a conspiracy if the people didn't tell him. him.
Yeah, there's no, and I don't know how Daniel would have known unless somebody mentioned something when they all caught him. Like, how would all of these men just show up at your house while you're praying and be like, haha, we got you? Like, I mean, that's super weird. So it might have just been obvious. So Daniel maybe told him or suggested that's possible. But yeah, I don't know how he came to this conclusion. Also weird that he kills their wives and children too.
Yeah, that is a little weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And the wives and children, like, it's weird that God would shut the mouths of the lions for Daniel because Daniel was innocent. But the wives and children, like, what the fuck did they do? But they were all killed too.
Yeah.
Because that's how OT shit works.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just how things worked at that time. I mean, with the wives and children, I guess it's just like, oh, if your patriarch dies, then, y'all are fucked.
Yeah. Anyway, then after he had all of them killed, King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in all the earth. I don't believe this happened quite like this says. May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions.
Okay.
So this is all well and good, but about this whole letter decree thing to all the people of all the world, even if you just shrink it down to all the people in Babylon, nothing really changes in Babylon in regard, like from a historical standpoint. No, at this time, there are no significant shifts in religiosity. There's no shift to worshiping Yahweh God at this time. And so anyway, it doesn't really seem to have any effect if it was a thing that happened.
Right.
But we all know that King Darius doesn't last very long. And Babylon is kind of weak against Persia. Persia has been gaining more and more power. And so Darius deserts Babylon.
Right.
And goes to Persia, to Cyrus, who essentially just walks into Babylon with no opposition and is hailed the king of Babylonia. So now we have a new king in Babylon, but it basically becomes part of the Persian Empire. The Babylonian Empire at this point ends. It's over.
Oh, okay.
Concurrent with the change of the rule in Babylon, Daniel leaves the palace in his position of governmental prominence. Okay. And they're skipping. So in the book here, we're skipping all the way back to chapter 1, just for one verse. And it says, and Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. Okay. So this Babylon is here, or Daniel is here in Babylon until the first year of King Cyrus. But in chapter 6, it says also, so Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So he seems to he seems to remain in Babylon and have favor, right?
Right.
We don't hear from him again for a while, and we don't know exactly what he does from this point forward.
Okay.
And that's the end of today's Bible study.
What?
And we're actually, next week, we're going to jump out of Daniel, right?
Right.
And we're going into the period of restoration, okay? Which calendar-wise is about 535 to 425 BCE. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to have the first return to Jerusalem. So, the first group of people who were taken away, the people were taken away for a period of 70 years, according to Jeremiah's prophecies.
Right.
So we're going to have them return.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to be moving into the book of Ezra. We've got mixed in a little bit of Chronicles, Second Chronicles. But King Cyrus is going to make a decree at the beginning of this upcoming podcast.
They sure do love their executive orders, don't they?
He's going to issue a decree. I mean, he's a king. Rulers, they do that, right?
Yeah.
He's going to issue a decree about Yahweh God. Okay. And they're going to make some preparations for resettling, right? The family heads of Judah and Benjamin and everybody who had moved out, they're going to work to resettle back in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Articles from the temple will be returned, and it actually has like an itemized list. Not even shitting you. There's an itemized list
of shit that needs to be returned.
Of shit that is returned to the temple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's also a list of returning exiles and how many descendants. Oh my God. And there are so many of them. Oh, Jesus, Pete.
That's probably two of the names.
Wow. Okay. So it's going to go through how many So it says, I'm just going to give you an idea. The list of men of the people of Israel, the descendants of Parash, 2,172 of Shephatiah, 372 of Ara, 775 of Pahath Moab, through the line of Jeshua and Joab, 2812 of Elam. Like, it goes through this list, and it's the priests, list of the priests, the temple servants, the descendants of Solomon. Oh my God, this is going to be, next week is going to be rough, y'all. Basically, we're just going to try to power through all my terrible pronunciations of names. That's what we're going to do.
Okay.
All right. They're going to number the companies. We're also going to find out how many slaves get to come back.
Oh, yay.
How many horses, mules, camels, donkeys, all of that. They're going to make some offerings at Jerusalem. The settlers are going to disperse. They're going to rebuild the altar. They're going to make preparations for the temple, lay the foundation, and celebrate. There's going to be some mixed emotions with everything that's going on. And enemies are going to, like enemies of Judah and Benjamin are going to pretend to help, but discourage plans, building plans that are going to not be beneficial for them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do next week. And then the week after that, we're going to go back to Daniel.
Okay. That sounds interesting. All right. Well, if you guys want to figure out how to pronounce all these fucking weird ass names,
no, I wouldn't recommend.
No? Okay. Well, if y'all want to hear us pronounce weird ass names, then you're going to need to tune in next week. But if you heathens will, please go down below and leave us a comment with what you guys thought about today's Bible study. Did you think that there was an interesting connection between Daniel and the New Testament, or do you think that we're stretching a little bit? Let us know down below in the comments. And hey, while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of Bible study.
And as always, don't forget to stand up and use your voice.
Bye, heathens.
Bye, y'all.